All right, let's just get right into it. For what feels like forever, the entire AI conversation has been obsessed with one thing: benchmarks. Who's got the highest score, the smartest model, the biggest brain? But you know what? While we were all glued to the leaderboards, the game itself completely changed. The real competition, it isn't about benchmarks anymore. It's about building a system. So let's kick things off with the number that's been all over the place, 57.7%. This is the score from OpenAI's GPT 5.4 on something called SWE-bench. And this is a brutal test. It makes an AI solve real-world coding problems taken straight from GitHub. This is exactly the kind of number that gets everyone excited.
And what's just wild is the speed of this progress. I mean, look at this. Just a couple years back, in late 2023, the absolute best models were scraping by with less than 2%. They were basically toys. Now, they're knocking out almost 60 out of 100. We've gone from a curiosity to a seriously powerful tool in like the blink of an eye.
So that's it then, right? The race for the smartest AI is pretty much won, and now we just sit back and wait for that number to hit 100%? Well, not so fast. That's actually the big myth we're going to bust today. Because asking who has the smartest model, that's just the wrong question now. Because the real game, the one that actually matters, has completely changed. The whole definition of what makes an AI agent good has shifted right under our noses. And here's the heart of it. The old way of competing was all about the quality of a single answer. Could the AI give you a perfect, brilliant response to one prompt? The new game is all about something totally different: task completion rate. It's not about answering one question anymore. It's about seeing a messy, complicated job through from beginning to end. So what is task completion rate? Well, think of it as an AI's ability to act like a real professional. It has to take a vague goal, come up with a plan, pick the right tools, actually do the work, fix its own inevitable mistakes, and then, this is key, check its work to make sure the job is actually done right. This is the new gold standard. Okay, so if task completion is the new finish line, how are the major players trying to win this race? This is where it gets really interesting, because we're seeing two very different strategies emerge. Pretty much every modern AI agent works in a loop that looks like this. First, it plans its attack. Then it picks its weapons, the right tools from a massive ecosystem. Then it executes that plan. And finally, and most importantly, it verifies its own work. See? It's not a one-and-done answer. It's a constant cycle of doing, checking, and fixing. You can really boil down these competing strategies to a simple metaphor. On one side, you've got companies like OpenAI and Anthropic. They're all in on upgrading the brain. And then on the other side, you have a platform like GitHub, which is totally focused on upgrading the workshop where that brain has to do its job. Let's break down what that actually means. So OpenAI and Anthropic are trying to build a better brain by packing more and more skills directly into the model itself. GPT 5.4 has a huge memory, can use a computer, and can search for its own tools. But check out what Anthropic did with Sonnet 4.6. They made it way more reliable for long, tough jobs, but kept it cheap. And that's the key here. The goal isn't just to have one super expensive genius model. It's to make the everyday, default model so good that professionals can't imagine doing their job without it. Now, you hear a ton about these million-token context windows, and it's easy to think, oh great, it's about giving the AI a gigantic memory. But that's really only half the story. And this is brilliant. The real superpower isn't just remembering everything, it's knowing what to ignore. OpenAI ran this test and found that by teaching the model how to smartly search for the right tool, instead of just cramming all the tool definitions into the prompt, they slashed token use by almost half, with zero drop in accuracy. The best agent isn't a hoarder. It's the one that can focus. Okay, so let's flip to the other side. Upgrading the workshop. GitHub's strategy isn't about building a smarter brain. It's about creating a perfect environment where any brain can do great work. They've added this plan and approve step, which forces the AI to show its homework before it starts writing code. They've made it way easier for the AI to find old issues and learn from them. The whole goal is just to structure the workspace to prevent stupid mistakes from ever happening. So we've got better brains and better workshops. Productivity must be going through the roof, right? Well, a really important study from 2025 threw a big bucket of cold water on all that hype. Just look at these numbers. The Met Research Group took some seriously experienced developers and gave them these new AI tools. The devs themselves
thought they'd get a 24% speed boost. The actual result? They were 19% slower. What on earth happened?
Well, it all came down to the workshop. The AI agents just got lost in messy, real-world code bases full of unwritten rules and tribal knowledge. The high standards of a real project, documentation, code reviews, testing, all things that benchmarks ignore, created a ton of friction. And, the AI just couldn't replicate that human gut feeling, that intuitive leap that an expert makes to solve a problem fast. But wait, here's the twist. A follow-up study just 1 year later found something incredible. The tools had become so essential to how these developers worked that many of them flat out refused to be in studies where they couldn't use AI. So even with all that initial pain, the habit was already locked in. The tool was becoming non-negotiable. And this all leads to the single most important idea in this entire explainer. The bottleneck for AI productivity is no longer the model's raw IQ. It's the environment. It's the cleanness, the structure, the quality of the workshop where that AI has to operate. So what does this all mean for you and for your team? It means you have to stop waiting for the next smarter model to save you. You need to start preparing your workshop. You need to start building your own flywheel for these agents to spin. Your team's future is probably going to fall into one of these 3 buckets. Worst case, you take a great model, throw it at a messy repository, and you get this illusion of speed while you're secretly racking up huge costs from rework. Base case, your workshop is kind of organized and you'll prototype faster, but your technical debt is just going to explode. But the best case, you take that same great model and you put it in a clean, tidy workshop. That's when you unlock the magic. That's when one developer can start acting like an entire team. The model is the constant, your environment is the variable. So what can you do right now, like this week? Pick one important repository and just clean it up. Write a README an AI could actually understand. Start writing better issues, explain the problem, the cause, the goal, and make a simple checklist to decide what an AI is allowed to do on its own and what a human needs to sign off on. And then, thinking a bit bigger, over the next quarter, turn your team's entire history of decisions into a searchable knowledge base. Start measuring what actually matters. Not how fast the AI is, but how often you have to fix its work. And simplify your model strategy. You don't need a dozen different AIs. You need one reliable workhorse to do the job, and one powerful critic to review the work. So I'll leave you with this one last question to really think about. In this new world of AI agents, you've got to ask yourself, is our code repository, our workshop, an asset that's making AI better, or is it a liability that's holding it back? Because honestly, the answer to that question is going to define who wins and who loses over the next few years.